Your face changed before you could stop it. That was the whole plan. They said it in front of people, in a room where it mattered. And whatever you did, whether you laughed, went quiet, or snapped back, you've been replaying it ever since. Everything you did was exactly what they wanted. And they collected every piece of it. The person who humiliated you is not afraid of your anger. They are counting on it. Every reaction you have ever given them, every flash of hurt, every defensive comeback, every awkward laugh, every silence that screamed discomfort was currency. You handed it over freely every time. While you thought you were responding, you were actually paying. Let me correct something you have believed your entire life. Public humiliation is not an emotional outburst. It is a calculated architectural move. The person who said what they said in front of people at that specific moment in that specific company did not lose control. They executed a procedure. The insult itself is not the weapon. Your reaction is. High-status individuals across every social environment, workplaces, friend groups, family systems, deploy strategic teasing, public mockery, and targeted embarrassment, not out of impulse, but by design. Hierarchies blur over time. People forget who sits where. Humiliation restores the order. And what makes it so efficient is that the target does the work. The attacker provides the opening. The target's reaction closes the trap. If you freeze, you signal submission. If you snap back, you signal instability, someone who can be prodded into losing composure at will. If you laugh it off, you ratify the verdict against yourself with your own voice. The audience reads all three outputs identically. They watch your face in the seconds after the attack, and they file their ranking update. You just move down a level. It is not about the specific content of the insult. It is about what your response tells the room about your position in it. There is a name for what happens in those moments: reaction harvesting. Every emotional display you produce is intelligence. Every micro-expression, every shift in vocal tone, every hesitation before you speak, these are data points. A skilled social predator does not need to attack you more than once to map your entire interior. They throw one piece of bait. They watch what comes back. Now they know your thresholds, your pressure points, your most likely escape routes. Here's what most people never realize. The humiliator needs you to react. The reaction is the product. Without it, the performance collapses in front of the same audience they were trying to influence. Without your visible disruption, they are just a person who said something strange into a silence that gives them nothing. Which means you have been doing something very specific in every one of these encounters. You have been completing their sentence. That ends now. But first you need to understand why stopping feels impossible in the moment, and why your instincts are about to betray you at exactly the wrong time. Your instincts are catastrophically wrong for this arena. Not because you are weak, because they were built for a different world. A world where the threat has teeth, not a microphone. The moment it lands, your body makes a decision before you do. The alarm fires faster than thought, and by the time you realize what is happening, you are already performing. You snap back, voice pitched differently, eyes gone cold, anger flooding the room before you chose to release it. Or you shrink, look down, go quiet, subtract yourself from the space you were occupying. Or you laugh. That particular laugh you have used your entire life to signal that you are above it, while every person in the room understands that you are not. All three signal the same message. Submission. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince that a prince who shows his wounds to his court has already lost. Not because the wound is weakness, because the showing is. The moment the room can see that something landed, the transaction is complete. The attacker won the social exchange regardless of what was said. They confirmed that their words carry enough force to disrupt you. Every person watching filed that information away. You confirmed the hierarchy with your own face. You are in a team meeting. You present an idea you have worked on. A colleague, someone with a smirk that has become familiar, cuts across it mid-sentence. No offense, but that's a bit naive, isn't it? And you laugh. The half-laugh that lives exactly between politeness and pain, the one you have deployed 100 times to signal that you are confident enough not to care. The room did not read it that way. That laugh was an agreement. Not that the idea was naive, that the colleague who spoke had the standing to say so, and that you confirmed the standing by accepting the verdict with a smile. You did not diffuse the moment, you ratified it. Your nervous system was trying to de-escalate a perceived social threat. What it actually did was hand your position to someone who had been watching you for precisely this moment. The laugh cost you more than silence would have, more than anger would have, because it was the one response that confirmed everything the attacker needed the room to believe. Here is where it gets dark. There is a way to respond to public humiliation that produces none of the three automatic outputs. It is not a comeback. It is not a performance of stoic suffering. It is something far more unsettling to a skilled humiliator, something they are fundamentally unprepared for, because in all their experience of operating on people like you, it never came. It is not suppression. Suppression is trying to feel less, and it always bleeds through. This is performance, the construction of a surface that transmits exactly what you choose and nothing else. Machiavelli wrote that the effective prince wears the mask so long, the mask becomes the face. What that means in practice, you are not hiding your emotions. You are deciding what crosses from your interior to the surface. Your interior life belongs to you. What registers on your face is a choice, not a reflex. The mechanics are more precise than they sound, and more devastating in execution than anything you could say. When the attack lands, your face does not move the way they expected. Your blink rate stays low, not because you are calm, but because you have decided what the room is permitted to see. They cannot identify what they are observing. They only feel the temperature change. You hold eye contact one beat longer than comfortable, not a stare. Just one deliberate beat past the moment most people would look away. That beat delivers something no words can carry. Whatever they expected their attack to produce has not arrived. They aimed, they missed, and then you give them nothing. No words, no vocal fill, no rush to prove to the room that you're still standing. Every instinct will scream at you to say something. That scream is the trap. Their words hang in the air between you and begin to rot, while they perform into a void that gives them nothing back. And without your reaction as fuel, the performance begins consuming itself. The first time you actually hold this, the first time you stay still in the moment of attack instead of completing their sentence, something will shift inside you that you cannot fully explain afterward. Not triumph, not relief, something colder and more permanent. The recognition that you are not a machine they can operate on command. That recognition does not leave. Robert Greene cataloged what Henry Kissinger did in rooms where other men came apart. Kissinger was not the most powerful body in those rooms. He carried a German accent in American corridors of power at a time when men openly used that as leverage against him. He was not the obvious predator in the room. He was something more dangerous. When someone attacked him, mocked him in front of colleagues, dismissed him with deliberate contempt in meetings with heads of state, cut him down while others watched, he stopped speaking. Not dramatically, not with any visible performance of restraint. The silence simply came down like a door closing. And then he held it. His face registered nothing. No wound, no anger, no trace of a man searching for the right response. Just absolute stillness, while the attacker waited for the return fire that never came.
Watch what happened to them. Every time, they began re-explaining themselves, walking back the attack sentence by sentence, shrinking inside the same room they had just tried to dominate. Kissinger observed with the patience of someone who understood the attack was never the real game.
He never raised his voice. He never defended himself. He did not need to. A man who does not react to an attack tells the room that the attack was too small to require a response, that the person who threw it badly misjudged their target. Every witness absorbed that verdict silently, not the one the attacker came to deliver, but the one Kissinger delivered by staying still. That is what you're building, not a performance of indifference, a reality that requires no defense. Composure stops the bleeding. What comes next draws it. When someone attempts public humiliation, a sarcastic remark, a dismissive comment, a cutting joke deployed in front of witnesses, you do not defend, you do not retaliate. You ask one calm, genuine question. What makes you say that? 4 words, no edge, no sarcasm, no performance of hurt, delivered as if you are genuinely curious, as if the comment intrigued you rather than struck you. You are not being passive. You are applying pressure to the exact point that does the most structural damage. You are forcing the attacker to justify their cruelty out loud, in public, with everyone watching. They have exactly 2 options. State the cruel thing clearly and explicitly. Strip away all plausible deniability. Say it with their full face showing, in which case the audience turns against them. Or they retreat immediately, which signals to every witness that there was nothing behind the attack worth defending. There is no good exit from that question when it arrives without affect. Here is the scenario in practice. You're in a social setting. Someone who has made a habit of small cruelties says, with a practiced smile, "Oh, you'd know all about failure, wouldn't you?" The room notices, and instead of laughing, flinching, or snapping back, you hold eye contact. You pause 2 full seconds of genuine stillness. And then, quietly, without inflection, "What do you mean by that?" Watch what happens. Watch their eyes move. Watch the smile begin to fail as they realize that to maintain the attack, they have to say the mean thing clearly, out loud in front of every person who is now watching them. Not you, that they have to stand behind it without the protection of implication. Most will shrink. The entire architecture of the attack relied on implied cruelty, the kind that stays deniable if challenged directly. Your question destroys that deniability. Either outcome, looking vicious or retreating publicly, belongs to you. Notice what is happening to you right now as you read this. Something shifted, not excitement, something cooler than that. The slow recognition that you have been surrendering weapons you never knew you had, that people who have operated on you for years did so on the assumption you didn't know the rules of the room. You did not know them. Now you do. Then there is the move that requires no words at all. Acknowledge nothing. Continue as if the comment was too small to register. Redirect the conversation to another person in the room, to the subject at hand, to anything without pause, without visible reaction, without the slightest acknowledgement that anything requiring your response just occurred. This is not avoidance. Avoidance is a flinch in slow motion. It still broadcasts impact to everyone watching. What you're doing is categorically different. You're not stepping around the attack. You're deciding it never rose to the altitude of something that earns your attention. The humiliator built their entire move around your acknowledgement. Not even a full reaction. Even a single flinch in the right direction would have given them the proof they needed. Proof of impact. Proof that their cruelty registers at a frequency you can feel. Your silence does not just neutralize the attack. It retroactively makes them someone who spoke into air. Someone whose cruelty was too thin to register on anything that matters. In group environments where the humiliator positioned themselves for the room's approval, this move leaves them standing in the center of a failed performance, visible and alone, while you have already moved somewhere they cannot follow. That is the moment the room quietly recalculates. Not because you said anything, because of what you refused to give. Machiavelli's most feared instruction is the one almost no one has the patience to execute. Do nothing in public. Catalog, wait. The person who humiliated you is watching for a reaction now. In the hours and days after the moment, they scan your behavior for the signal that their attack landed. The change in your energy around them, the visible discomfort, the avoidance. They expect that signal relatively quickly, because it always has come before. This time, give them nothing, show nothing, say nothing. Let them wait. What they cannot understand, what they have never needed to understand, is that you are not suppressing a reaction. You have replaced it with something else entirely, with patience, with observation, with a slow, deliberate calculation of someone who has stopped playing the short game. Here is what that feels like from the inside. You carry the moment forward, not as a wound, but as a coordinate. You know exactly what happened, exactly who was in the room, exactly how the attack was designed to land. And you know something they do not. You are no longer operating on their schedule. You're operating on yours. That difference is everything. One public humiliation is not the battleground. Reputation is the battleground. You build reputation over time in aggregate, through every moment you carry yourself well when it costs something to carry it well. Here is what happens in the room after you are humiliated. In the immediate aftermath of a public conflict, observers align with the aggressor. The attacker appears dominant, the target appears diminished. This is why humiliation works in the short term. It does precisely what the attacker designed it to do. But the verdict is not permanent. Within 72 hours, the re-evaluation begins. Observers start questioning the aggressor's motives privately. They notice what they did not register publicly, who showed control and who showed cruelty, who remained composed under pressure, who seemed like they needed the moment, and who seemed like they were above it. Observers re-evaluate the composed target upward consistently, and the aggressor's apparent triumph begins to look different in retrospect, smaller, more desperate, more revealing of the attacker's anxiety than the target's weakness. Their cruelty becomes testimony against them. Your composure becomes the verdict the room quietly delivers. Time is always on the side of the controlled. This is what Machiavelli understood about reputation as a strategic asset. People do not remember what was said. They remember who seemed in control. Every time you respond to provocation with composure, you are depositing into a social account that earns compound interest. The humiliator won 1 second. You're building a record that spans years. Every time the audience sees you composed, capable and undisturbed, the memory of that moment of your supposed diminishment fades. Their cruelty becomes their defining information. Your composure becomes yours. You do not need revenge. You need to outlast them in the room. You came here carrying something, a specific memory, a face, a room, a sentence said in front of people that you have turned over 100 times since. You came here either wanting to feel better about what already happened or wanting to make sure it never happens the same way again. You were never powerless in that moment. You were playing by rules no one taught you. You were bringing a set of tools, your instincts, your reflexes, your evolutionary wiring into an arena. Those tools were never built to win. That is not weakness. That is a mismatch between the weapon and the terrain. The mismatch is over. The people who humiliate others publicly are not powerful, not in any way that matters. They are dependent. They need your reaction the way a parasite needs a host. Their status depends on your visible submission. Without your disruption on display for the room, their move produces nothing. They are not powerful people pressing buttons on a machine. They are desperate people hoping the machine still runs the way it always has. You were never their target in the way you thought. You were their fuel source. And from this moment, you stop supplying it. Not through anger. Anger is just another form of fuel. Not through dramatic, visible revenge. That is a different performance they can harvest. Through the cold, quiet decision to become unreadable. To slow your face. To hold the silence. To ask the 4 words. To catalog the moment and move with patience they will never understand. The most dangerous version of you isn't the one who fights back. It's the one who no longer needs to, because you finally understand the moment you stop feeding them the reaction. The game ends, and it ends on your terms, quietly, permanently. And they will never fully understand why they suddenly have no power over you anymore. That's the point. Subscribe if this channel is new to you. This is the only place we talk about these things without flinching.